So, so here's the first lot in. So obviously, as you'll probably guess, some of the joints between the lats don't hit where the supporting lats are. Doesn't matter, really doesn't matter. As long as you get one fixing per horizontal, and where's it going to go? It's not going to be supporting any weight. They're just, they're just there. So, yeah, I'm not worried. So it's working well so far. I mentioned about not being bothered if the joints don't quite match up with the lats, but we've got a little filler here. It doesn't match up with anything. What's the possible solution to this? Oops. Bit of brand promotion there, but yeah, some wood glue. Other brands are available, but probably not as good. So yeah, down the side, along the bottom, up that side, job's a good one. So here's the first level of interesting timbers. What the hell is going on with the focus? Unfortunately, the little blocks at either end match up with the end lats, so they can be securely glued onto there. I'm not going to screw into those. I don't want to screw head in those little feature blocks, but yeah, they can be glued in quite securely, plus on the bottom and side edges as well to the adjoining timbers, and all will be good. Yeah, looking all right, huh? The thing I'm doing with these timbers now that they're visible above the height of the bed head is countersinking the screw holes, which I haven't bothered doing on these other timbers. It'll be pretty much invisible. Just a little bit of extra smartness. I've got those to glue in as well, so I'll crack on with that. So there you have it, the back wall pretty much complete. The little feature blocks fixed in there. We do have a situation with what to do up here, but I guess fixing a lot of wood to run along there will disguise that. It's a bit raggy along there. I have to sand that off. But yeah, so ready now to do the two sides. And one trick which I didn't do on the back wall with the masking tape out on the decking is you could measure where the lats are, so that if you wanted to, you could cut the boards so that there was an overlap of each board, so they had a double fixing. To be honest, these are 90 centimeters wide, the alcoves, and most of the pallet boards are 100 centimeters or a meter long. So just a case of nipping the ends off and I can get a single run. It's quite nice with some staggered jointing going in, so I might chuck a couple in again once we get above sort of the bed height, just where it's a bit more visible. Obviously I've got 2 sheets of polystyrene that were in there, kept falling out, so I've stashed them on one side. But yeah, the other thing is with the masking tape, you could measure the lats, put a run of tape down on the floor, on the decking, and then do all your pre-drilling outside on the deck. So all the boards, when they come in, pre-drilled, counter-sunk or whatever, and just ready for the fixing. And if you do that with a powered drill rather than a battery drill screwdriver combination, your battery might last long enough to do all the screws with. Anyway, can have a quick smoothie and crack on. So just a quick bit of information. If you're running horizontals along a full length, good idea to pick timbers of the same width to go along a particular row, because if you choose one that's say 8.5 centimeters or 8 centimeters to go along, and then the next bit along is 9 centimeters, then you're going to have a centimeter or a half a centimeter gap where the next timber rests on top of the thicker timber, and then you've got the thinner timber with the gap. So if you've got timber of different thicknesses, which is we have here, I mean, if I get the tape, I can illustrate. So this one, as you can see, is about 9.5 centimeters, just shy of 10, 9.5 centimeters thick. The next one up is about 8, just short of 8. This one up here, 8.5, not quite 8.5. So you can see what I've had to do when I was laying them out on the decking was picking timbers of the same thickness for each row, if you like, and it makes life a lot easier. So I've got the second wall done. Haven't actually blowtorched any of these timbers to sort of pick out the grain. I think they've all got quite interesting grain, quite well highlighted. See what it's like once they properly dry out. There's still a little bit on the damp side after being jet washed. But there's some lovely grain in some of that, and different colours as well. You can see there's a sort of the bluey greys and then the more orangey, russety coloured ones. In fact, I think there's a hint of burnt umber in that one. You're right. So yeah, and another thing, just to add a little bit of rusticness to the wall, is slightly different thicknesses, not different widths, different thicknesses. So you get like little sticky out bits and little inny bits and outy bits. That just adds a little bit of feature to the wall. You can see there's some really quite rustic gaps down there. Classic bit of cross-eyed cutting. There's a few of the timbers that are a little bit wonky across the top, so a bit wider at one end than they are at the other, or raised bits, and that does create a few gaps. But I saw one video where the couple sprayed the back of the wall black so that it didn't matter if there were gaps. Now obviously I can't spray paint polystyrene insulation, and I wasn't going to board over that and then attach these to it. Life's too short. So what I'll do is probably fill those with a bit of decorator's cork or something and paint them in, or something. I'll figure something out. Put a shelf in there and disguise it. But yeah, so we're just about to start on the third and final stretch. We've got a couple of thick skirting sections in, and a couple of bits fixed at the top. That was mainly just to hold these two renegade bits of polystyrene in that kept falling out, but it's both at the bottom and at the top. I've spirit leveled those in. Now the challenge is, obviously, as you work your way up, you're bound to get a really random, awkward gap on the very last bit. And where I'd want that last awkward gap is down the bottom, where it's not going to be seen so much. So yeah, from this one I shall be working top down and see where we end up. So here I've marked out the area of the left side of the alcove, and as I've already put some timbers in from the top down and from the bottom up, I've marked how far down they come and how far up, where the central or the vertical lats are on the wall and the width that they are. So I'm going to pre-drill down here and get those holes centered. So basically I've just got to fill this gap here. I've got way more timber than I need, but it's going to allow me to source the ones with the nicest grain and the best features on them. Have a bit of a shuffle around and hopefully find enough timbers of the right thicknesses that don't require any cutting at one end or the other. Get them cut, get them sanded, get them drilled, and take them up and fix them. So as much of the preparation down here as possible. Let's save making too much mess upstairs. So there it is. Left side finished. Back wall. Right side. Now there's just the rather hideous scars on the ceiling section from where that plaster coving was taken off. But I have just the thing. So I've got the timbers cut for going up into the roof here. If I illustrate like so, it's mited, and obviously there's one to go along the side there. But in order to fix them, I thought, well, glue them obviously, but to just give a bit of extra fix, I'm going to dowel them in. So I've just got to drop a blob of glue into these 4 dowel holes, tap them in, mark on the top timber where each dowel is, drill it, blob of glue, and tap it all in, and then do the same for the 2 sides, and that will hopefully disguise all of this, which isn't very pretty. So I've got that first one in, glued the dowels in, tapped them in, glued onto the top of the timber, the bit goes against the ceiling, glued along the back rib of the timber so it fixes to this. Got to tidy those drops of glue off, but it was still at the front end hanging down, so as a result, in order to keep it fixed up there and attached to this, I have had to put 3 screws in, which I was hoping to avoid doing, but as that's the case, it's got to be fixed in like that anyway. I figured rather than faffing around with dowels and too much glue and stuff, I will actually just slap a load of glue onto the tops of the side timbers, the edge timbers, and then just fix them directly in using the screws. As I say, I hoped to avoid that, but whatevs. Still a little bit of a gap there. I couldn't get that end screw to tighten in any more to that, so I'll need to go along that seam with a bit of decorator's cork just to fill that gap in and disguise that. hey ho. So I missed out all the stuff I did yesterday, really. Put some trim up around the top of the alcove. Filled in the gaps with some decorator's cork. Down the edges there, sanded those off. I still want to put a vertical strip fixed onto here of this kind of stuff, just because these are all different thicknesses. Some are sticking out, some are flush. It would just finish that off a bit better. And down here, and then put some framework up into that alcove. It's just glued in and it's set rock solid. And framework into that one, and I'm going to, I think I mentioned, put some doors on those. So I've polyfilled and caulked and sanded, so the walls are all now ready for a bit of fresh paint. And I've also sanded off, see there's still some duck prints on the wall there. I've also sanded off the little animal footprints that were on the floorboards, but they're going to be painted anyway. I'm going to paint the floorboards just to lighten the room up a bit more. And because I'm sort of antiquing the wardrobes in the bureau and probably having pallet wood doors on there to mirror the pallet wood doors that are going on there, and then the stuff in the alcove, I thought bare floorboards as well would just be just too much timber. Some would say you can't have enough, but anyway, that's going to be the last job. So today, just about to start slapping some paint on the walls. Stay tuned.